The deadline for U.S. troops to withdraw from Afghanistan is just over a week away, officially ending America's longest war. Tonight, many are asking, was it worth it? U.S. troops are racing to evacuate thousands of Americans and Afghans as quickly as possible before the Taliban seizes complete control of the country.
Tonight, KTLA's Christina Pascucci shows us how Afghans feel about escaping their home country and why they will risk their lives for freedom.
What are the costs of a 20-year war?
The United States will hunt down and punish those responsible.
Our military mission in Afghanistan will conclude on August 31st.
First, we start on the ground in Afghanistan with 33-year-old Noor. He's trapped in his homeland as he and his family attempt to flee the Taliban.
Your family recently fled your province.
Mazar-e-Sharif surrounding is captured by Taliban. It's just about my family, my children, and my wife. I'm exactly the type of people the Taliban will not like me. Probably if they find me, they will kill me.
Osama bin Laden and Mullah Omar, the leader of Taliban, used to stay here.
Noor's a history buff, and his entire life he's worked to show the beauty of his country.
We're at the citadel of Kandahar.
You are an eternal optimist, typically.
I wanted to educate people, but now I really lost hope.
What do Afghans think of America right now?
They're just leaving Afghanistan behind, and everything is falling back into the hands of Taliban. So we're confused. Right now, we have 22 active terrorist groups inside Afghanistan. America said that they're going to finish the terrorism.
Noor says his family's only hope is to get to Turkey, but black market visas cost $2,500 per person. Others, like the Zazai family, were lucky enough to get out.
They gave us a chance to come to United States with our family, to have a safe life over here.
Adi Kola worked for the U.S. Army as a cultural advisor.
Taliban was targeting those who were working with U.S. armies. We were at the front line.
Why were you willing to risk your own safety to help the U.S. Army?
They have played a very great role to help Afghan people.
He now lives in Anaheim with his wife and 4 kids.
In your view, did President Biden make the right decision?
Taliban have never removed from Afghanistan. People were saying, let's give a chance to Taliban. I think they have changed. But we see, even they have not changed. If we will not destroy this group in future, and very soon future, we have to face again to fight against Al-Qaeda.
Historically, under Taliban rule, daughters have few, if any, rights. Adekola's wife, who did not want to be identified, worries about all the progress that's been made.
You have 3 daughters. What is the message you have for your daughters?
My message to my daughter, be peaceful, be kind, improve your education, help our country. Yeah.
This family's hope lies in the people.
Every day we see like hundreds of people are getting weapons and they are fighting against Taliban. And they are there shoulder by shoulder with Afghan forces.
Later in this series, an unthinkable cost of war. I'm Christina Pascucci for KTLA 5 News.
Tonight, we continue our series on leaving Afghanistan. For many veterans, the battlefield follows them home and changes who they are. For the first time, the mother of a decorated Army sergeant turned mass shooter is speaking out on camera about the role PTSD played in her son's horrific act.
And were there any warning signs that could have predicted the terror that was to follow? KTLA's Christina Pascucci takes a look at some of the consequences of war.
Give me a kiss. I was that mom out there like, he's mine. Give me a kiss. He was a good kid, you know, strong-minded.
Daddy. I love you. Thank you. Halan.
His high school friends loved him.
What do you want the world to know about Dionisio?
He was a great brother and a great uncle, and that he loved this country. I felt so bad because we were so close and I had no clue. He was as sick as he was, and he had all that. But he must have just snapped.
he was shooting, and that's all you hear is pop, pop.
25-year-old decorated Army Sergeant and Rancho Cucamonga native Denicio Garza, who had served 2 tours in Afghanistan, shifted overnight from hero to mass shooter.
It was 2016. Denise was very convincing when he would talk to us, but he had us convinced it was going to almost be like civil war, like a war, and that he needed to be in Texas. This is my first time I'm seeing maybe what I would call red flags. I had no clue what I was watching happen. Saturday, I'm here, Mom, but I'm gonna have to get rid of my phone so they can't track me. I was a mess.
Michelle never heard from her son again. That night, he broke into a Houston tire shop, barricaded himself, and waited. The next day, he would fire 212 rounds, killing 1 man and injuring 6 others before he was killed by police.
It just appears to be someone who was in mental health crisis.
He was back in war. He was right back there in Afghanistan. And I saw him go from 0 to 100 in probably 3 days. So bad for those families. So sorry that happened.
This is the first time Michelle Garza is speaking on camera about her son because she feels veteran families are not given the support they need to understand their kids come back different.
He was home 3 years, and I thought he came home, he had his legs, he had his arms, were good. You know, I knew he had changed a little. One of the moms reached out to me, and her son was military. She didn't blame him for her son being shot. I found comfort in being around people who don't look at my son like a monster. And I try to hold on to this guilt that I have because he hurt others. And we're just all broken.
About 800,000 Americans have served in Afghanistan since the war began. The chances of developing PTSD are as high as 1 in 5. Cost of War Project found 4 times as many troops die by suicide than in combat.
Looking back on this 20-year war and all the loss, was it worth it?
Of course, I want to say no. I mean, I think we need to take care here. I bet we can't watch others be hurt either.
Next in our series, a soldier on the front lines speaks out. I'm Christina Pascucci, KTLA 5 News.
Leaving Afghanistan. In tonight's special report, a misguided mission. What did America accomplish during the 2-decade war? An active duty service member says after 20 years, America's mission in Afghanistan is still unclear.
Yeah, and tonight he's sharing his insights into what went right and what went wrong during America's longest war. Christina Pascucci now has his story.
KTLA is getting an exclusive insider perspective from an active duty service member who has executed special missions in Afghanistan.
I have been there 5 times. I have typically been acting in a air support role.
We're concealing his identity as he fears retaliation. Is it fair to call them covert missions?
Many of them were working with special operations for a majority of those. There's a lot of information that the average American doesn't get on the news. One of the main targets that we were going into the war with was to find high-value individuals, people who are at kind of the top of the food chain in the Taliban, try to figure out where the best place to either capture or kill them would be.
20 years, did we hurt or help?
I would hope we help, have a vested interest in seeing Afghanistan succeed. I spent a lot of time there, and I hate to look back on it and be like, that was all a waste.
While government officials said it would take months for Kabul to fall, it took days.
I think we failed the people of Afghanistan.
What do you think the biggest successes and biggest failures are of the last 20 years?
The war that we fought definitely modernized our U.S. military counterinsurgent operations. The special operations as a whole grew significantly during this time. Funding for new equipment, better training. One of our biggest failures was not setting clear objectives before we actually involved ourselves. Many of my friends and people who served there were just really disgusted with how the entire war was managed.
The only constant under 4 U.S. presidents, he says, was the inconsistent directives. One would hold back on airstrikes, afraid of civilian casualties.
The most frustrating thing that I found in my time there was watching entire villages being slaughtered, or people doing things, beheading prisoners, and being told that we could not intervene.
Another would push forward with more strikes, but he says none of the leadership seemed to give a clear end goal.
Every day when I was flying or on the ground, one of those questions are like, why are we here? I don't know what we're working towards.
President Trump released a statement in recent weeks saying, in part, if he were president, the Taliban would understand what they've done is not okay. President Biden holding firm on his stance, it is time to withdraw.
After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces.
Do you think it's a smart decision to pull our troops out?
Part of me says yes because of the high cost. Most people don't understand what happens when we agree to go do something like this and what it costs.
Why do you think they're sending some troops back?
I don't know. Kind of goes back to my previous point. What's our objective? Is this a way for us to say that we didn't completely abandon them?
Next in our series, a combat veteran bears it all, the image that still haunts him and what he sees as a true cost of war. Christina Pascucci, KTLA 5 News.
In tonight's Afghanistan special report, nobody knows the atrocities of war better than those on the front lines. KTLA's Christina Pascucci spoke to a Marine Corps veteran about the images that still haunt him.
We want to warn you, some of what you're about to hear may be disturbing.
How do you think war changed you?
There was something that I saw in Afghanistan that has stayed with me. We had gotten a call to go out, radios go absolutely nuts. Tanks just ran a double feed on 3 insurgents planning an IED. We get out there and it's not 3 insurgents, it's a dad and his 2 sons. The older son was 14, 15, and the other one was younger than 10. The dad is the only one that lived.
The explosive device intended to kill U.S. service members had detonated.
Hearing him scream, seeing what was laid out in front of me, that's what I struggled with for a long time. Sorry, it's just I'm thinking about a lot of stuff now that I start thinking back to Afghanistan.
Corporal James Hamilton also experienced personal loss during his 2013 8-month tour. His friend, Lance Corporal Matthew Rodriguez, was a young Marine who always made his platoon members laugh.
I had badly hurt my ankle. He ended up taking a position as a driver, and that was the last time I saw him. Our staff sergeant walks in. One of our trucks just got hit. We had drove all the way to the flight deck where the plane was being loaded with Rodriguez's body. And that's when I found out it was Rodriguez. And just watching him being carried onto the plane, it was just something that shook me to my core.
Back home in Laguna Hills, the internal war raged on for this father of 3.
I was sleeping on the couch, and my oldest, Brianna, didn't want me to be alone. So she would sneak downstairs and sleep behind the couch. One night I shot up. I get up, go to walk around the couch, and I see a shadow lift off the ground behind the couch. I immediately do a flying knee right at it. I hear her start crying, and then it snaps in my head. That's my little girl. I just hurt my daughter. I started drinking more and more. My fiance threatened to leave me if I do not stop drinking. And so I did. I try to think about the good times that we had there. The time that it did snow, we built a snowman and promoted him to corporal, so that was fun.
What will the legacy of Operation Enduring Freedom be?
All the people who have sacrificed everything and asked for nothing. Freedom will never taste the same as someone who has sacrificed everything for it.
Next in our series, Killed in Combat, the message from the families of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Christina Pascucci, KTLA 5 News.
Now at 10:30, a KTLA special report, leaving Afghanistan. Tonight, the consequences of war that leave a lifetime of scars on the families of the fallen. Well, living with loss of a loved one killed in combat leaves an unspeakable hole in the lives of the families.
Tonight, the families of the fallen speak out about that loss, many wondering if the war in Afghanistan was worth the cost. KTLA's Christina Pascucci shares their message.
When words feel painfully inadequate, we stand in silence, weighed down by the heaviness of loss. 45-year-old Marine Corps reservist Sergeant Major Robert Cottle of Whittier.
He left behind a little daughter at 8 months at the time, Kyla, who will never know her dad, and a wife.
And 19-year-old Lance Corporal Rick Santani of Yorba Linda.
After 9/11, he was just a kid. He thought about it, wanted to correct the wrongs that were done to us on our country's soil.
Paid the ultimate sacrifice, March 24th, 2010.
Their sole purpose was to stop the Taliban from coming from Pakistan and bringing all their supplies. An IED was tripped. Somebody waited for them to get in the middle of the convoy. They ignited the IED, which killed Sergeant Major Cottle and Rick instantly. His best friend was actually right in the vehicle behind him and watched it happen.
Can you tell me about your brother?
For 45 years, he had a very full life. He was an adrenaline junkie, I'm telling you. He became a SWAT member, and then he ended up teaching across America. I felt like sort of like an orphan because he's my only brother. My mom's now gone. She passed because of the heartbreak due to my loss of my brother.
When he left, I started crying, and my ex looked at me and said, "We're not going to see him again, are we?" And I said, "No, we're not." When we talked to him, we would hear things like they would go into poppy fields for the opium that they were selling to make money, and they would torch them. They were just doing what they felt was for the greater good.
What do you think Rick would think of the withdrawing of troops?
His thing was to finish the mission. I know what he would say. We didn't finish.
After 20 years of war, do you think it was worth it?
My brother gave his life to help Afghanistan, to have democracy. They've helped train their army, and then the president leaves, all hell breaks loose. And it kind of feels like my brother's death was in vain.
You have an optimistic view that I think is important for our veterans to hear.
To all people who fought in Afghanistan, thank you for helping us to preserve the life we know and love and value. This is not a perfect country, but certainly is one of the best to live in. One of the reasons is because my own brother sacrificed his life.
I just wish that I had the opportunity and chance to see what kind of a family he would have. Ricky, I'll see you again. You and I will be in heaven together. And you'll make fun of me, and we'll tell your favorite jokes.
The true cost of these past 20 years can never be quantified by numbers alone. It is revealed through those who courageously share each of their stories.
If Rick could hear you right now, what message do you have for your son?
We are so proud of him, proud of the stand that he took to go over there. He's a hero to us, to everybody. He's not forgotten.
Christina Pascucci, KTLA 5 News.